Welcome to Compliance Chronicles, where we learn from professionals shaping the world of compliance. I'm your host, Liisa Thomas, outside privacy and compliance counsel, an adjunct professor at Northwestern Law School, and a lifelong learner of organizational change. From personal journeys to hard-earned lessons, these are the chronicles that inspire and guide. Let's dive in. Today, I am joined by Mike Smith, who is now at Wintrust, but we have known each other for a long time. And Mike, before we get started, I will give you the floor to do your introduction, because I have realized as I introduce people and give their title that doesn't always correlate to what they currently do.
I have been in the privacy space for about 15 years, and I was at HSBC prior to my current position, which is at Wintrust, and I am the privacy officer here.
Privacy compliance is part of your role, but you haven't always just overseen privacy compliance. Part of your roles in the past have been compliance more generally.
Yeah, I've had a very strange path, if you will, which probably a lot of privacy officers have. I started in the Navy. I was an officer in the Navy. I got out and I did a variety of roles, from call center operations to leadership training, communications, security and fraud risk. Just prior to getting started in privacy, I was a fraud prevention manager, and I was asked to run a project where we were going to determine what we needed to do from a centralized privacy standpoint within the company. And then from there, I ended up running the privacy office for quite a while. And in addition to that, I was taking on other compliance roles, particularly in the regulatory compliance space. So I had a good number of different roles throughout about a 7 or 8 year period there, where I was doing privacy and these other things.
I feel like that is a common theme for anyone who's doing privacy compliance internally, is that it's a lot of privacy and compliance.
Yes.
And
well, I think part of that is, depending on the organization, the privacy role tends to be, there's a ceiling to it, if you will. The chief privacy officer is at a specific level, and depending on the type of role company you're in, that's probably not going to be at the most senior level, direct report to the CEO kind of role. So the CPO tends to be 1, 2, 3 levels down, whatever it might be. And so if you're looking to expand and do more things in the company, you either have to change companies because you want to be in a bigger chief privacy officer role, or you have to expand your duties and take on more than just that one thing. And that was the case for me. And, it worked out extremely well. And I got to do a lot of really interesting things and build my scope and go out and get a compliance certification as well as my privacy certifications. And, that really expanded my view of how the company operated and so on. I got the Certified Regulatory Compliance Manager, CRCM, which is a super difficult exam. What I think CRCM did was it gave me this broad understanding of everything that we do to keep the bank in compliance, because it focused on the regulations. That was the big part, but it also talked about compliance program management, which of course I've had to do in the privacy space, but then expanding that and looking at it from a compliance lens, and then a little bit more broadly looking at it from a risk management in general lens. All of that, I think, helped me as I move forward with my role.
So, sort of a related question to how hard that exam was, and I was thinking about how you said how you got into privacy compliance, but what made you stay in privacy compliance, especially when it was so difficult? And
again, I just, I happened into it. So when I got the call from my boss who said, I'm going to have her run this project on data privacy, and I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. I really didn't even know there were regulations and things behind it. So I think what kept me around and why I really enjoy doing what I'm doing is, back in my Navy days, confidentiality was a big deal. When I got into data privacy, I felt like there were a lot of parallels there of figuring out how to work with information without abusing information, knowing that what we're doing is ultimately helping somebody to not just keep their data private, which is part of it, obviously, but you can't have all data private completely. Obviously, they have to give us data in order for us to be able to do the business, meet regulatory requirements. So there's a give and take. And understanding that give and take and where's the line that we're crossing over, not just from a regulatory perspective, but maybe people love to use the word creepiness, from a creepiness perspective. So thinking about it from that perspective has always been really important to me, and I think keeps me going in this way of saying I can help the company to use the data in a way that is smart and responsible and still takes into consideration, what the individual at the other end is would expect from us. So how do you deal with this seemingly overwhelming amount of information? You really have to use that principles-based approach of saying, where are we going to set our boundaries of how we're going to approach privacy as a whole? And that's saying things like data minimization. Okay, well, what does that mean for us? How are we going to implement that? Notice and choice. Okay, those are sort of generic terms. What does that look like from a principles base? And then how do we apply that so that we can hit probably 95% of the requirements that are out there? And I think focusing more on the principles-based piece gives you the ability to feel less overwhelmed with the details of every nitnoid in the various regulations, and allows you to focus bigger at the bigger picture. The challenge is, again, being able to balance what the business wants to do versus what the regulations say you can do versus what the individual at the other end would expect you to do. Privacy is about building relationships with your business. And what that means is you've got to be able to have conversations that really get to the heart of what's going on and what they're trying to do. Why are they even asking for this? Building relationships with the business and the various functional areas across the company that are all somehow tied into the privacy space. That is what's really going to make somebody successful in the space, because you're not going to be fighting every time you have a conversation. You're already in the conversation. That's just a natural part. And now today we're talking about this topic. Yesterday we just had lunch together, whatever it is. But that building relationships, I think, is really, really important to making it easy to have those difficult conversations and dig a little deeper.
Do you have any last parting advice that you would give either to someone starting out in this area or to someone who might be feeling a little bit of burnout and feeling a little bit of exhaustion and overwhelm from this not easy job that we all have?
Probably two things. Number one is, if you're bored in this space, you're not doing it right, because there is so much change happening. It's a very dynamic space in data privacy. I don't know, somebody just showed there are 4,500 new regulatory changes coming out every year or something. It's I don't know where they get that count. I don't know, but it's a lot. And sometimes things move faster than others, right? But there is so much dynamic change happening, and not just in the regulation space. It's about what are we planning to do in our company, that's changing what we need to think about. What's happening in the news and expectations from the end user, customer, individual out there, that they're now looking at things differently. It might not have anything to do with regulatory change. It might have everything to do with the environment you're in. So I think remember the dynamic nature of this business and don't allow yourself to get sort of stuck in a rut, if you will, because there's plenty out there to get you, sort of give you new energy and take you down another path. The second thing is, who do you picture at the other end of the data? Who is that individual that's out there that you're ultimately helping by ensuring that the company's doing the right thing with the data, and or they're using it in a way that's going to help this person to move forward in their lives? Who is that? For me, I usually think about my mom, and I think about, now my mom's passed a couple of years ago, but I still think about, what would she think? How would she react to this? Would she know what this means? What would her reaction be to this? And so everybody's got their own who at the other end, but you should have somebody that you picture at the other end who's going to be the user of this new product, the user of this new software, the user, whatever it is. But ultimately, they're the ones whose data is at stake. And when you have them in your mind, I think it reminds you of what it is that you're doing and why you're doing it.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Compliance Chronicles, where we look for guidance and inspiration from the personal journeys of compliance professionals.